Okay, so before Brave New World came out, my prediction was that it was going to basically try as hard as possible to be Winter Soldier. Having seen it last night, I can confidently say it was actually worse than that. This is going to be pretty spoiler heavy, so sorry in advance, but honestly, don't even bother. That's the takeaway here. Save your time and your money and just let me complain about it for you. Okay, so we're going to have to start with a plot synopsis here because, wow, I need to unpack some of these things. This movie starts with the worst surprise of all. It expects you to have watched Eternals. All you really need to know is that a big guy busted through the Earth's crust and Marvel forgot about it for 4 years. This big guy is the world's only source of adamantium, which the movie tells us is even more indestructible than vibranium. And now like the whole world is about to fight over it, but President Ross from other Marvel is trying to negotiate like a trade deal over it. Anyways, Captain America and New Falcon stop Gus Fring from stealing some adamantium, and as a result they get invited to the White House by President Ross, and they bring with them Isaiah Bradley, the old super soldier from the TV show. But then Isaiah Bradley tries to shoot the president, and then he kind of scampers off, and when they catch up to him, he has no memory of doing it. So then New Falcon hacks into the White House security cameras, as people are known to do in these movies, and they see footage of Isaiah Bradley's phone flashing lights in his face before it happened, so they realize that he was mind controlled, and they hack some more stuff to track the perpetrator to this off-grid military facility, kind of like another movie you may have seen. And it's there that they discover the worst surprise of all. This movie expects you to remember what happened in The Incredible Hulk. Turns out the mastermind is a guy from the Hulk movie who got some Hulk blood dribbled on him, and it gave him super intelligence, and he invented technology that mind controls anyone to do very specific actions based on only a few flashing lights in their face. I just have so many questions about the logistics of this. Like, how do they know what you want them to do? Anyways, he's orchestrating all these events to take down President Ross because Ross locked him up in this prison and then forced him to make technology and weapons for the United States, and then forced him to get Ross elected? Honestly, this dude is kind of dumb as fuck. His plan is probably not that much dumber than like your average Marvel villain, but it's made way funnier by the fact that he has super intelligence. This dude literally invents like this sonic beam wave that fully immobilizes Captain America, and then he goes, okay, switching that off now, goons, kill Captain America, and none of you better have brought a gun either. This is probably a good time to mention that there is not even one semi-good fight scene or action scene in this entire movie. Anyways, Brain Boy's plan is that he's gonna mind control enough people to start a war between the US and Japan, all so that he can tarnish Ross's legacy. But then at the end, we find out that this guy had recorded phone calls where Ross said, "Hi, man I've illegally imprisoned. Great to see you here in this unlisted military detention facility. Could you assist me in creating weapons and maybe also getting me elected president?" Like, I think an email would have done the trick here. You didn't really need to start a whole world war about this. You kind of had everything you needed. So he mind controls 2 US fighter pilots to attack the Japanese fleet so Captain America and Falcon have to go stop them. And they do. But it turns out that President Ross has a heart condition, and he enlisted Brain Guy to help him solve it, and Brain Guy made him pills that made him better, but the pills had gamma radiation in them. So gamma radiation has been building up in his body, and then Brain Guy makes Ross really mad at a press conference, and he turns into Red Hulk. It is very obvious that they decided Red Hulk was going to be in this movie before they even wrote it, because it's not the 180 that I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to be doing totally unrelated shit, and then boom, Red Hulk. Instead, this entire movie is written around, oh, he's getting so angry, oh, will he be able to control his rage, before in fact he does turn into Red Hulk. So instead of one dumb plot twist, they kind of wrote an entire movie's worth of dumb to facilitate this transformation. Anyways, then Captain America has to fight Red Hulk. Now you may be asking yourself, isn't Sam Wilson just like a normal fucking guy? Didn't the Hulk fight like a 40-foot tall wolf creature? Didn't the Hulk fight Thor? Yeah, this movie takes a lot of time to really emphasize that Sam is just a normal dude. They have this entire scene where Bucky actually shows up to give Sam a pep talk and be like, hey, come on, not taking the super soldier serum? That's where your strength comes from, because you're just a regular guy. Yeah, that's awesome, Bucky, but my unenhanced bones are actually now a liquid because I flew at supersonic speeds in a fucking wingsuit. Why is Sam deciding not to take the super soldier serum a choice that everyone in this movie has so much reverence for? Captain America has to face down like the most insane shit the universe has ever seen. It's not a flex to show up completely outmatched in a fight. When Thanos 2.0 rolls up and pulls your spine out with one hand, you're not gonna get consolation points because your gains were all natty. So how is this regular guy gonna fight Red Hulk? By luring him to a park where he used to hang out with his daughter and being like, hey man, come on, remember trees? You like trees. I fully expected Sam to pull a Black Widow and start like petting him, soothing him like a scared horse. And the thing about that master plan is it works. He beats Red Hulk by talking to him. This is CW tier writing. And then everything works out in the end, and the post-credits scene is Sam visiting the Brain Guy in prison, and he's being all like vague and menacing, but kind of like about 15 years too late. He's like, you're not prepared for what's coming. You poor little fools. You really think your world is the only one? No, dude, aliens have been confirmed for 15 years. An alien literally came to Earth and killed half the world's population. What the fuck are you talking about? Well, what about the multiverse? You know, there's more than Yeah, dude, we know about the multiverse. We had 2 seasons of Loki, and Tobey Maguire came back for a second. You're not giving us any new or useful information here. I've been in prison since 2008. I have so many thoughts about this movie and I don't even know where to begin. The CGI looked borderline unfinished and so much of this movie is just lumps of CGI crashing into each other. The brain guy's head, which was actually a practical effect I think, still kind of looked like shit. The dialogue sucked ass. The music was really dissonant and jarring a lot of times. And it's so weird because my main thought about this movie is that it wants to be Winter Soldier so bad. Some parts of it feel directly ripped from Winter Soldier. The opening scene of Captain America on a mission to apprehend a bad guy and recover some asset, and then he gets sidetracked by a big brawler guy and has to fight him one-on-one. There's a thing where after they banter for a second, Captain America takes his goggles off as a gesture of challenge in exactly the same way that Cap takes his helmet off before he fights Batroc. The scene of Captain America chasing an assassin through a building before the assassin jumps out a window, having to go check out an abandoned military facility to find the secret hidden mastermind inside. It just feels like they went, okay, new Captain America, what are we gonna do? Well, the fans liked this one, so just that again? Yeah, but maybe bad this time? If you're just gonna copy Winter Soldier, could you not make the fight choreography suck complete ass? Look at this highway fight from Winter Soldier. It's so intricate. Yeah, it was shot and edited by a crack addict, but this is just how movies looked in 2014. The music from Winter Soldier is sometimes dissonant, but in a way that actually builds a lot of tension and adds to the tone. That Winter Soldier screech is a lot like the Joker's theme from The Dark Knight, where it's not necessarily musical, but it's just intensifying the action. See, that's the thing. They grabbed as much stuff from Winter Soldier as they could, but they had no understanding of how those things added to the experience of Winter Soldier. It's like a person trying to bake a cake and they know that they need eggs and flour and sugar, but not how much because they don't know what those ingredients do for the finished product, so they just throw random amounts in and create a jumbled soup that looks and tastes like shit. And why in your grounded, gritty political thriller did you make your final boss a big clump of CGI? The end of Winter Soldier would not have hit the same if Steve had to fight a 30-foot CGI Bucky. He's just normal Bucky, but they took the corner of the rectangle and kind of just dragged it out a little bit. Also, this movie completely wasted Giancarlo Esposito. You have one of the great fictional badasses at your disposal and you do absolutely nothing with him. From what I've read, I think they may have cast him in this movie after they finished filming it because all of his scenes were done as reshoots. What the fuck is happening behind the scenes at Marvel that you forgot an entire Giancarlo when planning the production of this movie? Sam Wilson Captain America has thus far not been a very adequate substitute for Steve Rogers. And I want to be clear, Anthony Mackie is absolutely not the issue. I've seen him in other stuff and I kinda like him as an actor. The issue is the god-awful dialogue they keep handing him, and just some underlying issues with the way the MCU handled his character. I'll start by saying, I think it's pretty clear that the entire Infinity Saga all the way through Infinity War foreshadows Bucky being the next Captain America. Not only are there a lot of visual clues like the number of times the Winter Soldier holds or uses the shield, but in both Winter Soldier and Civil War, the relationship between Steve and Bucky is literally the entire thing. Steve can't let himself believe that Bucky is beyond redemption. Everyone else might think so, but he's willing to throw away his friendship with Tony to protect Bucky. And then in Endgame, Joe Biden, Captain America, just kind of swerves at the last possible second and gives the shield to Sam instead of Bucky. The missed opportunity here cannot be understated, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was an immediate indication that this was actually the wrong choice. Because Sam is actually just less developed as a character than Bucky is. Sam's arc in the show is about the decision of whether to accept or reject being Captain America as a black man, and you know what, in fairness, there actually could have been something kind of interesting here. The stuff with Isaiah Bradley was probably the most interesting part of Sam's story in that show, and it added a lot of interesting wrinkles to the idea of a black person becoming Captain America in a country that had treated black people so poorly in the past. But of course, because it's Marvel, they have no restraint in telling a story like this, so it ends up feeling very tokenizing and virtue signally. So Sam gets harassed by the police for no reason, obviously, of course. So while all this is going on, what's going on with Bucky? You know, the one that Marvel deemed an inferior choice to become Captain America. Well, he's struggling with all this guilt over all the horrible things that he did as the Winter Soldier, going person by person on a list that he's made of everyone he's wronged and trying to make amends for all the terrible things he did that he had no control over. And he befriends this guy whose son he actually killed as the Winter Soldier, and he can't tell him that, but he really wants to, and that's what he's wrestling with over the course of this whole show. And by the end, he finally does confess what he did to this guy and they reconcile. That's good shit. Imagine if you could somehow merge Sam and Bucky's stories here. Like if you could write a story about someone reluctant and struggling to take on this mantle of perfection and justice when he had participated in so many violent acts of evil. Damn, you might actually have a three-dimensional character, which of course you would do by giving the shield to Bucky like you seemingly had planned to for a whole decade. The idea of passing over a more developed character to hand over the shield to someone seemingly purely on the basis of race that's page 1 of the Guilty Corporation playbook. It's been almost a year and a half since I talked about the MCU, so these thoughts have been kind of piling up. The big news lately is that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Dr. Doom. As an announcement in and of itself, that is absolutely sick. I'm very excited to see his interpretation of this character. But to me, this is like the ultimate desperation play. Let's do a recap here. You had this dude play a character for 10 years and everyone loved him. You gave him arguably the most satisfying ending of any of the main Avengers. Then you kind of fucked around for 6 years doing nothing, and now you're like, oh shit, how did we make good movies again? Robert Downey Jr. was in a lot of them, if I remember correctly. Yeah, let's just do that. I don't mean to make fun of people for being excited about a new Avengers movie. Like, you're allowed to be excited about stuff. It's just that whenever I read the 900th Screen Rant article about how actually this Robert Downey Jr. thing makes sense and was foreshadowed the whole time, I feel like maybe I missed something along the way here. I love that the only characters we have confirmed for this big climactic team up, that by the way is coming out in a year and will be the first Avengers movie since 2019, are characters that we haven't even met yet. Like, not to tell you guys how to make your movies, but I feel like the entire selling point of the old Avengers movies was that you're watching a bunch of characters you already liked bounce off and interact with each other. I don't think Infinity War would have been as much fun if they had just been like, Captain America? Oh yeah, he's actually off doing other stuff. This is Paul, this is Jessica. You remember them from that time in the cereal aisle at Meijer last Wednesday? Yeah, they're gonna be your protagonists on this one. Also, the weird choice to not have any team-up movies before you use Dr. Doom. Did you forget that to make your final boss feel impactful, you actually have to develop your characters first? See, that's the thing. I'm about to sound like a 60-year-old man complaining about teenagers, but these companies just want instant gratification. They do the work for 10 years. They see the fruits that come from that work, not just obscene boatloads of money, but like a really engaged and dedicated fan base who will go see literally anything you put your name on, and then instead of taking away, okay, now we see why it's worth it to build these stories carefully over time, they get impatient and they go, we just made $3 billion off of one movie. We could probably do that again every movie, right? With no effort at all? The last time I talked about the MCU, I talked about what I perceived as the two major problems with everything after the Infinity Saga. There is what I call the static world problem and the main characters problem. And to be slightly fair, Brave New World tries to address both of these issues. When I talk about the static world problem, what I mean is that whereas in the Infinity Saga it felt like the world kept growing and changing to reflect the big shared events that kept happening, in the Multiverse Saga it feels like nothing that happens impacts the world at all. Brave New World tries to address this by showing the aftermath of Eternals and showing how the world reacts to the emergence of the big guy, so credit where credit's due there. But also, like, it's been 4 years since that movie came out. According to this timeline, it's been 2 in-universe years since Eternals, so like, what's everybody been doing? This timeline also illustrates kind of an interesting point about the difference between the Infinity Saga and the Multiverse Saga. If you look at the start of the timeline, you see that the stuff is roughly chronological in the order that it's released. Yeah, you have some prequels, but the progression is like relatively linear. With the Multiverse Saga, that is not the case. You got TV shows and movies just doinking around all over the place. And this has a lot to do with how stagnant the world has felt. You can't put big world-changing events in any one movie or TV show if you don't know what stuff comes before and after it. And now that you're juggling a TV release schedule and a movie release schedule, it seems like you kind of don't know when stuff is going to be coming out, so the result is that your world just never changes. And even when it does, like in Eternals, it can take 4 years to pay any of that stuff off. And it's really hard to make progress towards your big boss team-ups without your world growing and changing with your characters. Speaking of characters, the other much bigger issue with the MCU right now is that there are no main characters. Whereas the Infinity Saga was focused around Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, the Multiverse Saga is like a magician just enthusiastically pulling an endless scarf out of a hat. Meanwhile, the show has been over for 2 hours. The theater crew just wants to be able to clean up and go home. But he's like, oh, but check out this character. I bet you didn't think we could make a whole TV show about her. And have you considered this character? Not that I'm desperate for more sequels, but at this point in the Infinity Saga, 6 years in, we had 3 Iron Man movies, 2 Captain America movies, and 2 Thor movies. And the function of that is you start actually developing your main characters instead of continuously starting other character arcs. Your big team-up movies are only going to be as satisfying as they impact the character arcs of characters we already liked. And that only happens when you take the time to actually let your characters grow by having them participate in multiple stories. The main characters are like your anchor points that your cinematic universe revolves around. They're your vessels to introduce your side characters. But after Endgame, when they ended all of their main story arcs, they just never chose new main characters. And in fairness, I do see the difficulty of restarting something that massive in 2019. It's easy to forget that Phase 1 was just a bunch of superhero origin movies back to back to back, and that was fine in 2008 when superhero movies were a novelty, but audiences probably wouldn't have the same patience in 2019 to see that many origin movies. I think the only way to make something like this work after Endgame was to have your old side characters become your new main characters. The Avengers who survived Endgame should have been the skeleton that your next story was built around. Make Doctor Strange your protagonist, make Ant-Man your protagonist, make Spider-Man your protagonist. You guys had so many characters who had already gotten off the ground, who you didn't have to make origin movies for, and who you could use as vessels to introduce other characters. And you introduce a few new heroes who also start getting developed and crossing over with people, and before long, you've got another fully complete story arc, and maybe some of your characters die or have satisfying endings, and then you use the side characters as your new main characters. If what you really wanted, as it seems that you do, was just to make these movies forever, you could at least have made them good, but no, because you guys got to Endgame, and instead of saying, okay, what characters do we want to focus on next, you said, people are eating this shit up like slop. Let's just make the story wider. Let's just add as many characters in here as possible so we can make 2,000 TV shows and get people to join our streaming service. This is 2019, we're just discovering this great new way to make money. Because of course you did, because you're the largest entertainment conglomerate in the world. Fellas, we're gonna remake Moana 10 years after we made it, except this time instead of looking fun, it's gonna look boring as fuck. Yeah, it's the future, stuff's not allowed to look cool anymore. We're gonna make a new original Lion King movie and it's gonna look like real lions. It's not gonna be animated like you obviously should have done and would have been 100 times. Nope, stop the video, we're derailing this whole thing. Disney, what the fuck? You had Lin-Manuel Miranda, you could have made an animated movie, made fun songs, and gotten away with a plot as shitty as this one. Instead, all the songs are just kind of generic and it looks like a real lion. Real lions cannot emote, Disney. You see these eyebrows? Lions don't have eyebrows. Lions don't speak to other lions by moving their lips like a human. If you made a live action movie that looked like that, it would look fucking horrifying. So instead, you just say, real lion, and create a character incapable of showing emotions. That's your issue, Disney. You're unable to just ask the question, what would be good? Because you're always asking, what's the hot ticket thing right now? Yeah, guys, I know we could keep our movie superhero franchise just a series of movies so we can keep telling this interesting story and making more money than God himself has ever seen, but if we also make 1,000 TV shows, and in doing so completely shatter the structure of the entire thing that all of our fans liked in the first place, we could each get $3 more from streaming revenue. And streaming is the hot new thing, it's 2019. I feel like you would actually make more money if you had even a little restraint instead of relentlessly pursuing every dollar no matter the hit to quality. Of course, the consequence of getting this irritated about it is, they got my money. I went to go see all these movies. I'm gonna go see the next ones because I gotta see how they fuck it up next. Maybe this was Disney's plan all along. The ultimate form of entertainment. The car crash you can't look away from. Because let me tell you, they have absolutely gotten me to go see some car crashes, and off the back of my movie theater dollars, they'll pay for the next car crash too. Mufasa movie made $653 million, and I would know, cause there I was in the theater. So I guess I'll see you around, Disney, at your next outing at the movies, which is a live action Lilo and Stitch movie. Oh my God.